Luigi's Mansion 3 is a ticket to a very different kind of ride, the carts clattering all over the track as you loop each sudden loop, and yet it works as a proper sequel, still expanding on the methodical qualities of previous titles. It's got so much charm, nicely illustrated and detailed from top to bottom, and had it only stuck the landing, I might have said it was more than pretty good. I know. Dangerous words, you madman, etc. Really though, I'd call 3/5 or so of the game spot on, everything I could have wanted, but as is the risk with developing any thrill ride, it misses some of the finer details in staging I still think the first game managed best. Were there some extra depth on that front, or just an ending worth the price of admission, I would have easily put this a mark ahead. As it stands, I'm almost shy of disappointed. Not to sound too up my bum. I'd previously talked about how excellently the first Luigi's Mansion was staged, a simple game that filled a single location to the brim, with more than just, the spookies. They went the extra mile to make the house feel like a character, a well-lived-in space that told its own story underneath the gameplay. I likened it to theme park design, creating a space that's as entertaining as the rides, and when I did that, I was basically dipping into the general shared theory of theme park and video game design philosophies, both a kind of immersive theatre. Putting on a show for the guests, making people think they're in a place they're not, pretending that things aren't what they appear, giving it a sense of hey, this is nice, dude. Am I meant to be here? Reservations. I think you'll find me under B. This is good, man. Hey, Peach, I've just been looking at your flaxen locks, as you do, and I'm just thinking maybe you and I should head to the open pool they got over there. She seems nice. He seems nice. Nice smile, Should we be doing something? Maybe you can help me out, a ghost dog. Yeah, okay, so not exactly a theme park, that's for another mode, but pretty close. Luigi's third mansion is a colossal hotel, and the further you venture in, the more obvious it becomes that it's actually an entertainment resort, every floor taking on a new themed activity, not unlike what Disney offers. Everything about that choice is brilliant, a natural evolution of the original mansion, progress marked by collecting elevator buttons that let you access new floors. I did like how in the previous game, Dark Moon, you had Luigi travelling to different mansions, moonlighting as a Ghostbuster because, well, let's face it, we haven't seen him around a U-bend in a while now. However, if you were looking for a single space to get intimate with like the original, a place that was fully explorable and filled with special guests, but also bigger and more varied, without stretching the concept too far, a hotel is the way to go. The decor is more grand, the thrills are steeper, the encounters more intense. If LM1 was the Haunted Mansion, then LM3 is the Tower of Terror. LM2 is the Toontown Meet-and-Greets. Okay, maybe I'm stretching this a tad. Happy to report that the art direction inside that tower is on point. The original mansion was clearly a Victorian-style Gothic nightmare, its inhabitants close to the turn of the century, all tightly connected inside those aesthetic rules, suggesting age and decay by placing it so far back in time. The hotel commits to similar principles, going in hard on the 30s and 40s, an evolved Art Deco look with its repeated hard angles, even when the floors take on wildly different themes. Jazzy tunes float down the marbled hallways and through the dusty rooms, all incredibly lonely to visit until Abu! Ghosty. I've never begrudged each game using its own pack of ghosts. It gives them their own personality, and possibly satisfies Nintendo's need to not let these things feel too canonized. They're all very identifiable, so you know the strategy as soon as you see them, as in previous games. Only now they show up in greater numbers, and the ways of dealing with them this time are loud. Luigi has what I've seen described as a keyring of abilities, some of which come from Dark Moon, that he can cycle through on the fly, giving him new methods of interaction, none more noticeable than his new method of Those abilities make things certainly more fraught and perhaps a little overplayed. You may find this gets dull, but there's a fundamental cheeky appeal to the crowd control tactics I was real into. The power. The power. The ghosts seem more like they're thinking on their feet and making use of their surroundings, which makes the frantic pace of those encounters feel more personalized. Emphasis returns to Luigi's environmental interactions too, once again hoarding cash for a better outcome, and it's hidden everywhere, absolutely all over the place, with secrets to be found in almost every nook and cranny. It's kind of insane how sensitive the environment physics are now. I spent a good chunk of time in the intro alone seeing what could be moved and mucking about with the pump flush action, getting back to my roots after all. There's a tactile, reactive feel to it all that I appreciated, especially when I got my hands on a damn chainsaw and started a full refurb. Much better. So many tools at your disposal now, maybe too many if I'm being totally honest, but conceptually it feels right that Luigi's become such a handyman, flipping through his options and oh no! Okay. You might be over Luigi? I am not. We're back with Professor Egad, who offers Luigi all this new tech, and seems to take particular sadistic pride in introducing his new jelly son. God, he's just so unsettling. What flavor is Luigi? I'm asking for a friend. It's only the second worst thing I've seen. Yeah, I'm stalling because I know I have to say something. He's on the box, alright? Yeah, it's a decent puzzle gimmick. Like, he can get beside you and join in on some of your attacks. Even offers a couple of fun eureka moments, which means it must be doing something right. Overall, the game is much more of a puzzle-based experience set between points of frantic combat, and Luigi is reasonably well utilized through the game to justify the distinction. I guess, you know, I'm more a design guy than a controls guy, so I think, you know, you get it, he's good. Just stop moving! There is an extreme level of polish to the character's performances, not only in the physical animation, which people can get very hung up on, but in the personalities expressed beneath it all. Those are what makes it so charming. It's gone back to being weirdly specific, and that's nice to see from Nintendo, who seem to be dialing back the crazier spin-offs for a while there. After Odyssey, it looked like Nintendo was willing to get nuts again, which LM3 backs up in spades, including the welcome return of an enemy type I thought had gone the way of the dodo. Maybe the bosses aren't portrait ghosts per se, and initially I was disappointed to see that the gallery number count was smaller than the originals. However, it became clear as I played that the number was axed in favour of improving the size of their roles. Boss ghosts now either met in huge engrossing fights, or putting you against the tricks of an entire floor. Like everything else, they're stuffed with character, and each encounter feels like you're up against more than a random enemy, some even seeming vaguely familiar.
It broke new ground!
One of my favourite encounters was Poulter Kitty, a cat who shows up twice in the game to steal your buttons and has to be chased between floors, which was a neat excuse to backtrack and get a bit more involved with the space. You gotta pique her curiosity and then make her the cat. I'm gonna look like a goddamn genius. It was always exciting to pick a vendetta with a ghost and see it through across the building, and maybe that was helped by knowing they were all in the employ of an extremely charismatic spook. I have a lot of time for Helen Gravely, not just because she appeals to my high trousers, fast-talking sensibilities, though okay sure she does, you got me. It's her sense of style the hotel has taken on, it's her staff you're fighting against, and her impeccable direction as a manager that informs and encapsulates the entire experience. They went to the bother of making all these things totally explicit, which lends a layer to the game that the last one was really missing, though the returning faces are just as welcome. I have to confess, I was grinning like a damn idiot through this whole bit. King Boo is just the same as before, if not better. The way he's presented here is still as a pompous, giggly idiot, but now he also seems to be a kind of legend in the ghost world. Helen's clearly a King Boo fanatic, and the relationship is treated like a mafia don and his mole, helplessly devoted to an unstable kingpin.
You spend more time putting yourself up than there is time in the day.
Listen, honey, if I didn't look this good, you wouldn't give me the time of day.
I'll see you in the car.
KB doesn't really care about his minions, or being respected. He's just in this for the chaos, and it shows. It all works on Luigi even now. He's clearly a long way from where he was when 1 started, but the scares still have him cowering in terror or jumping out of his skin. Stuff I was worried was going to be gone given the attempts to tone things down in the past, but no. You can still hear him scream on the coaster's downswing. Very satisfying.
Fish pee.
Oh, before I forget, the music. It's great. That's all I have to say. I ain't Adam Neely. I fell a bit in love with so many of these decisions, which is why it pains me to say it seems held back from true greatness. Only a little bit, but why bother? I mean, if you were really defensive about me saying that, then you've already forgotten anything nice I had to say, so it's fine. The big picture of LM3 is genius. Pretty much all the stuff you want is here, and the experience is fun overall, but sometimes the concept doesn't feel like it's rounded off consistently. I think what the original did well was making everything fit into a set of design principles and digging deep with them. Here, I feel like they often go big and crazy to advertise the thrills and spills, and then try to stuff it into the shape of a house, and I'm not sure that works out for the best. When it works, it really works. You've got Castle McFright, for example, which is taking on the appearance of a medieval times dinner show. There's food stands, the audience is made of cardboard, it wants you to know this is an artificial setup. Likewise, the pirate-themed area is a restaurant with tables and a bar. But then you get to the Egyptian suite, which is straight up a pyramid. And while it's neat that you have artificial walls and stuff, that's cool, I couldn't shake the feeling that this and a few other floors were missing a clever twist that would make them vital parts of the resort. Are the traps here for the guests' benefit? Is the architect Fred Jones? Egyptian casino floor, now that I get. That would have been amazing. I don't mind some anachronisms, as long as it has a purpose in the hotel, which is why the disco club zone is, kinda great.
Stop it.
The space can feel a bit like a one-trick pony, even though it's bigger. There's a lot of cash to be found and a couple great shocks, but little in the way of the hotel or the ghost's history, so you can't stumble across much interesting off the beaten path. Morty has a special circumstance you're free to discover, but it's fleeting, and sadly doesn't apply to any of the other inhabitants. We're still lacking the option to use the virtual boo, that's a 6 out of 10 pun, to give us Luigi's opinion scanning objects. Understandable, but we had it once, and it's hard to forget. I also don't know that the boss ghosts are as well distributed. Was a bit cheeky to make both the bellhop and the chambermaid bosses when they felt more like cheap fodder than special encounters. The early ones felt so brief compared to the much more engaging fight that began so soon afterwards, and it set up a false expectation that I might be fighting a couple more bite-sized special mini-bosses like them. The element of surprise is strong at the start, but sadly those surprises are few and far between as the story progresses. I knew the elevator was going to undergo a Metal Gear panic at some point, but the result was kinda boring, and didn't feel terribly earned. It's all kind of telegraphed. Part of the joy of the original was stumbling across rooms, never knowing if it would hold a bunch of normal monsters or a mini-boss waiting in the dark. An adapt and survive mentality. There are great surprises, and they do a good job of beefing up the roles of basic ghosts in certain special encounters, but I could have done with a few more optional guests instead slumming in random rooms. Actually, there's a point. I never did track down any boos beyond their tutorial. That was so well set up. The mist on the ground, the change in music, the energy and surprise of the fight. A great way to make the boos feel like the stars of the show, except it's never required again at any point. I know, I literally just argued for more optional stuff, and I don't think collecting them should be forced on us, but I'm surprised they made them so optional to the campaign, given, well, who they are. It's mostly an issue of setting up so much cool stuff so well, only to not deliver at its best. Despite being so brilliantly created, Helen's big reveal and confrontation left a lot to be desired, with a weak puzzle element that was over quickly. So I thought, hey, alright, I guess they're planning something special for the final fight then. Spoilers? No, I don't think this is an unfair complaint, especially when Nintendo's been putting out crackin' final bosses as of late. Spoilers for those to follow. Bowser's always expected, but took on some great twists in the last few titles. Ganon took on what is my favourite form of his in recent memory, an angry mess of unfinished rage, desperate to get this whole Destiny thing over with. For this to just be King Boo again, after clearly taking inspiration from the original game to better flesh out the concept in all other areas, feels, honestly, a bit cheap. Especially when Luigi's Mansion 2 already did this. This is why I don't know who to really talk to here. I don't know if it's timidity on the developer's part or restrictions on Nintendo's, but it's weird because they clearly made decisions like this inside the game already. The signs were all there. Heck, I was hoping they were going to make something of Helen Gravely's involvement. Perhaps she developed some kind of secret weapon that made her invaluable to King Boo, until she's done and then he gets a hold of it. They even went to the bother of showing Mario being cool, so I figured they must be aiming to swap out Luigi with Mazza for the final fight. But again, no. We already had this great promise of King Boo chasing Luigi through the corridors at the start, which was real effective. I'm not a fan of Huge King Boo. I think it turns him into another Bowser and robs him of what was so funny about this Napoleonic squib. But maybe they could have played it as though he'd found a way to big himself up, and every now and then he'd surprise Luigi during the adventure and chase him down through the hotel. Or go full Nemesis, but on a PG scale, of course. Oh, you know, maybe he keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe that's the thing. And in the final boss, he'd be huge. Even Giant King Boo would have been something. Add a dipping sauce and some fries. Give me anything other than plain bread, you know? A boring ending can put a sour twist on the journey already taken, and I was mostly annoyed because I felt like we were onto a good thing. Like they were trying to build to something bigger, some kind of surprise. Letting the game settle, I did find myself thinking about all the things I enjoyed, and I stand by them, but it also ended up bringing into focus the stuff I wasn't too hot on, and would have been more forgiving of had they shown they could follow it all through, something the first game will always have going for it. Now if you've never played that one, this might not be an issue. You could probably pick up Luigi's Mansion 3 and have a swell time tonight. But I think it remains to be seen if it will stick as strongly, if people will come back to it as much as other rides vying for their attention, before somebody turns it into Rocket Raccoon's Space Race, or what is it again? I don't even know. Well, okay, first ride-through thoughts. I'm glad there's way less negative to say than I feared. You have no idea how much I wanted to like this, and cool, I can say that. I just wish I liked it even more. Perhaps what lets the back half down is that the entrance queue is so beautifully decorated. The introductory sequence tells a little story in a very Nintendo way, parts comically unsettling in a manner that tops even the first game. And I kind of wanted more of it. We're still waiting for that magic to be recreated consistently. I think we're close. Very close. There's so much to Luigi's Mansion 3 that took me back to a place I hadn't been for a long time. Seriously, the developers should be proud. It's truly a great thrill. There we go, bring that one back around. By the same token, it reminded me just how much could still be done. But what counts is that the promise is there. Even if it's just in one little spark. Notice me, Kevin. Notice me. Thanks for watching. Once again, a big appreciation for my patrons for helping fund this content. It's unbelievably cool that they would get together and do that. And I'm going to keep putting out videos and keep getting stuff done and tide you over until other big projects on the horizon. I will return real soon, and who knows, maybe even with a good video. What a thought, huh?
That's right, Jay.